In this video, we shall cover part 9, which is the different streams of yoga. And there are 6 streams of yoga mentioned in the syllabus: Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Hatha Yoga, and Mantra Yoga. So we shall cover them one by one. Now, first, Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the path of the intellect. The texts concerning Jnana Yoga are the Upanishads, Bhagavad-Gita, etc. So, the Upanishads, as we already saw, form the Jnana Kanda of the Vedas. So they deal with the nature of knowledge and how to attain them. So Jnana Yoga, they form the texts of Jnana Yoga sadhana. Jnana Yoga prescribes 3 steps to attain Brahma Jnana or knowledge of reality, which are Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. What is Shravana? Shravana means to listen to the truth. Shravana. Manana is to understand the truth and reflecting on it. Nididhyasana is meditating with determination on the truth and realizing it. There is a difference between understanding something and realizing it as reality. And so Nididhyasana is the realization of it. Brahmajnana or knowledge of reality results from properly undertaking these 3 steps. So this is Jnana Yoga. What is Jnana Yoga sadhana? What are the steps involved in Jnana Yoga sadhana? Jnana Yoga is prescribed by Advaita Vedanta as the only means to attain liberation. We had seen about this when we covered the different schools of Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta believes that Jnana alone can grant liberation. So Jnana Yoga is prescribed by them. The Jnana Yoga sadhana involves Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana on the Mahavakyas. We also had seen about Mahavakyas, that's been covered in another video. So the Mahavakyas, as I had mentioned, speak about the relationship between the Jiva and the Brahman. And Advaita Vedanta interprets that relationship between a relationship to be a relationship of oneness, non-different. They believe that the Jiva and the Brahman are the same. There is no difference between them. Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. So, Jnana Yoga sadhana involves Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana on the Mahavakyas. This culminates in Brahma Jnana or realization of the direct import of the Mahavakyas. We already saw that the Mahavakyas have statements such as Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma. So the Jnana Yoga sadhana is a process to realize the direct import of these Mahavakyas. The direct import is to say that there is a direct relationship between Jiva and Brahma, that they are the same. To realize this is the goal of Jnana Yoga sadhana. This results in Jivan Mukti or liberation while living. In the last video, I had mentioned the difference between Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. Jivan Mukti is to be liberated while living, whereas Videha Mukti is to be liberated after death. So, Jnana Yoga sadhana grants one Jivan Mukti. So, this is about Jnana Yoga. Next, we come to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti is the path of devotion. It means to channelize the emotional energy and direct it in the form of love towards God. The texts dealing with Bhakti Yoga are Narada Bhakti Sutras, Bhagavata Purana, Bhagavad-Gita, etc. Now you see Bhagavad-Gita mentioned for all the yogas because it covers all the yogas. Bhakti Yoga is the act of developing unbroken, unadulterated love for the Lord and completely surrendering unto Him, which is Sharanagati. Now this Sharanagati is considered to be an important aspect of Bhakti. Anyatha Sharanam Nasti, Tvameva Sharanam Mama. To be in a state where one feels that he has no other support or no other place where he can turn to, and the Lord alone is his support system. So that is complete Sharanagati, complete surrender. Anyatha Sharanam Nasti, Tvameva Sharanam. Now what is Bhakti Yoga sadhana? Now Bhakti is again one of the important Bhakti Yoga texts. 2 of the important Bhakti Yoga texts are the Narada Bhakti Sutras and the Bhagavad-Gita. Narada Bhakti Sutras have already been covered in a previous video. And Bhagavad-Gita will be covered in detail when we come to Unit 2. So in this video, I'm going to be covering only the concept mentioned in Bhagavata Purana. To understand Bhakti Yoga better, please refer to the video on Narada Bhakti Sutras and the videos which will be coming up on the Bhagavad-Gita. So in Bhagavata Purana, we find Navavidha Bhakti or 9 kinds of Bhakti. What are they? Shravanam, which is to hear about the Lord. Kirtanam, which is singing the glory of the Lord, doing bhajans and all that would come under Kirtanam. Smaranam, remembering the Lord. Pada Sevanam is to serve his feet or offering service to the idol. Archanam is worshipping the Lord. Bandhanam is offering respect to the Lord. Dasyam is to serve the Lord as a servant. Sakhyam is to develop friendship with the Lord. Atma Nivedanam is surrendering oneself completely to the Lord. So these are the 9 kinds of bhakti mentioned in the Bhagavata Purana. There are also 11 forms of bhakti in the Narada Bhakti Sutras, which again has been covered in the previous video. Now, Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the path of selfless and intelligent action. I've used the term intelligent action because one performs selfish action only when he is ignorant, and it is only knowledge which enables one to perform selfless action. So in order to perform selfless action, one needs knowledge. So this is why I've also added the term intelligent action. Now the Karma Yoga, the important text of Karma Yoga, one of the texts is the commentary written by Lokamanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak on the Bhagavad-Gita, where he interpreted the Bhagavad-Gita as a Karma Yoga Shastra. Tilak argues that the aim of Bhagavad-Gita, the import of Bhagavad-Gita is to uphold Karma Yoga, and he wrote this commentary when he was imprisoned and he was in jail because of his involvement in the freedom movement. Karma Yoga is based on the doctrine that it is impossible for man to shun actions completely. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishthatya karma krute karyate hyavashah karma sarvah prakriti jairpuniki. We find this in the Bhagavad Gita, which means no person can be still without action for even a moment, because there is a necessity, there is a push from within to engage in action from the three gunas. From whatever prominent guna we have, there is always an urge to do action. So it is impossible to renounce actions altogether. That is the belief doctrine which Karma Yoga is based on. Therefore, one has to do actions in a way so as to make them conducive to liberation. And Karma Yoga is not so much about what action is done as it is about the attitude with which the action is done. Swami Vivekananda says that in front of man is the machinery of the world. It is like a machine. It's like a highly complicated machine. Now, man has two options. He can either completely renounce the world, the Jagat, and attain and take up sannyasa and follow sadhana that way, or he can enter into the machinery, work through the machinery, and attain liberation. This is the path of Karma Yoga. So, Karma Yoga is to do actions so as to make them conducive to liberation. And the last point, see, Karma Yoga is not so much about what action is done as it is about the attitude with which the action is done. Karma Yoga certainly emphasizes on doing good actions, but that is not the sole aim of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is also, is most importantly, the attitude with which the action is done. To illustrate this point, we find the story of the Dharma Vyadha from the Mahabharata. I'm not going to be explaining the story in detail. It's just that a sage called Gautama ends up taking instruction, ends up learning about the highest truths of Vedanta from a butcher, a person who sells meat. Because this butcher is a Karma Yogi and he has knowledge. He has greater knowledge than the sage Gautama. So it all depends on the attitude with which one does the work. Karma Yoga Sadhana. Karma Yoga proposes doing actions with a sense of duty without any expectation of result. Karmanya vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That is the one of the most important shlokas of Karma Yoga. There are four kinds of action: Nitya karma, Naimitika karma, Kamya karma, and Nishiddha karma. Nitya karma are the daily obligatory activities, such as if we talk about Nitya karma in the Vedic context, doing Agni Hotra, doing Sandhya Vandana, and all that. Naimitika karma are the occasional obligations. These would include doing Shraddha once every year. Kamya karma are the actions done out of desire. There are yajnas and yagas which are done in order to get some desire fulfilled. Putra Kamit Yaga, for example, is done in order to have children. It is said to have been performed by Janaka to get Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrugna. Nishiddha karma are the actions which are prohibited. Now there are various dharma shastras which deal with what Nishiddha karma are. There are certain actions which one is not supposed to: killing somebody, drinking, smoking, these things, stealing, lying. So these are Nishiddha karma and unlawful, unethical actions. Karma Yoga Sadhana means to perform Nitya and Naimitika karma and avoid Kamya and Nishiddha karma. The first two are to be practiced and the second two are to be given up. But again, this is only part of Karma Yoga Sadhana. First part is to be in a position where we do good actions and refrain from bad actions. But that is not the whole of Karma Yoga. Surrendering the fruit of action to the Lord out of the understanding that one is merely an instrument in his hands is Karma Yoga. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna saying to Arjuna, Arjuna tells Krishna that he doesn't want to be the one to kill all his relatives. So Krishna tells him, Nimitta matram bhava sabyasachi. He says, I've already killed these people. I am the one who is doing the action. You merely be an instrument. Nimitta matram bhava sabyasachi. And we also find another shloka where he says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. Dhamayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. It means the Lord resides in the heart of all the beings, and he makes them do various actions as though they have been mounted on the instrument of Maya, as if they have been mounted on an instrument. It's like we are all sitting on a roller coaster. It is the roller coaster which is taking us and moving us. We are not doing anything. It's the roller coaster that's doing it. So we find the idea that we are not the doers of our action and we don't have freedom to do as such in the Bhagavad-Gita. So Karma Yoga is to understand this, and with this knowledge to surrender the fruits of action. Knowing that we are not the doers, we have no claim to the fruits of action. So it is to surrender the actions to the Lord himself. The ideal of Karma Yoga is to attain perfect selflessness by performing one's duty for duty's sake. Any action done by such a selfless person would be Nishkama Karma, action without desire. So this attaining of the state of Nishkama Karma is the goal of Karma Yoga. Next we come to Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga refers to Patanjali Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. It is the path of willpower. It aims at gaining mastery over the body and mind in order to realize the truth that lies beyond the mind. Patanjali says that only when the mind is completely stilled, only when Chitta Vritti Nirodha is attained, the reality can be seen. The key text of Raja Yoga is the Patanjali Yoga-Sutras. Bhagavad-Gita again also deals with Raja Yoga. There are shlokas such as Shuddha Udeshe Pratishtha Sthiram Asana, which deal with how one has to sit in asana. There is Apane Jukpati Pranam Prane Panam Tathapare, which deals with how one has to perform pranayama. So Bhagavad Gita again deals with Raja Yoga also. The Raja Yoga sadhana consists of 8 limbs. Again, this will be explained in detail when we come to Unit 4, which is Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So I'm just providing a brief gist of the 8 limbs. Yamas and niyamas are the moral restraints and observances that are followed to strengthen willpower. Now this explanation is from Vivekananda. Vivekananda says, by doing moral actions and by being ethical, a man strengthens his willpower. Moral activity strengthens the willpower. So yamas and niyamas are meant for that. Next we come to asana and pranayama, which are done to achieve physical stability and control over the vital energies, the pranas. The 5th step is pratyahara, which is withdrawing the sense organs from the objects. Now these 5 angas or limbs are considered to be Bahiranga Yoga, which because they are external. The next 3, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, are considered to be Antaranga Yoga because they are internal. Dharana and Dhyana are concentration and meditation to gain control over the mind. Concentration, Dharana is done with effort and Dhyana is done without effort, effortlessly. Samadhi is the goal of Raja Yoga, the state of spiritual absorption where the reality of the self is revealed. Tatha drashta swarupe avastha. Tada drashta swarupe avastha. So that is Samadhi. Hatha Yoga. The term Hatha is a combination of the syllables Ha meaning the sun and Tha meaning the moon. It also means force. Now Ha and Tha also refer to the nadis respectively, Ida and Pingala. Hatha Yoga tradition was founded by Yogi Matsyendranath and his disciple Gorakshanatha. And some of the popular Hatha Yoga masters are Gorakshanatha, Swatma Rama, Gheranda, Srinivasa Yogi, etc. There are many Hatha Yoga texts such as Hatha Pradipika, Gheranda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Hatha Ratnavali, etc. Hatha Yoga is the path of using the body and the vital energies, that is the prana, as a tool to gain mastery over the mind. The path of Hatha Yoga is meant to prepare one for Raja Yoga sadhana. This is very important. Hatha Yoga is not exactly a separate stream of yoga as compared to Raja Yoga. Hatha Yoga is more like a preliminary to Raja Yoga. In Swatma Rama's Hatha Pradipika, we find Kevalam Raja Yoga Hatha Vidyoga Dishyate. It means only for the attainment of Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga is given. The knowledge of Hatha Yoga is given. So Hatha Yoga is meant to prepare one for Raja Yoga sadhana. Hatha Yoga sadhana. Hatha Yoga sadhana focuses on the following: asanas, pranayamas, mudras and bandhas, shuddhi kriyas, which are practices such as dhauti, neti, basti, kapalabhati, which are meant to remove the gross impurities from the physical body and prepare one for the practice of pranayama. They also speak of the kumbhakas, which are the various retentions, antar kumbhaka, bakya kumbhaka, all that. And following a diet conducive to the demands of yogic practice is also important. Now, there is the concept of yogic diet, which is a general guideline as to what kind of food can be eaten and what has to be prohibited. Hatha Pradipika speaks of the Patya Ahara and Apatya Ahara. There are also specific prescriptions for certain practices. For example, Swatma Rama says that a person who practices Viparita Karani should eat a lot because the body requires a lot of energy to perform that asana. So there are such specific prescriptions too which need to be followed. These also come under Hatha Yoga sadhana. Now the last stream of yoga that we'll be covering is Mantra Yoga. Now the term mantra is derived from the root mananat trayate iti mantra, which means that which protects when repeated is a mantra. Mantra Yoga is the path of using mantras to awaken the self and spiritual advancement, and to attain spiritual advancement. It is also called Japa Yoga. Mantra Yoga typically requires initiation by a guru. Typically, there is a guru and he initiates a person with a mantra, which the person then chants. Mantras are considered to be potent sounds which create positive vibrations in both the chanter and the environment. So both the person who chants, as the person who listens, as well as the environment surrounding them, they all reap the benefits of mantra chanting. Mantra Yoga leverages the power of sounds to achieve benefits on the physical, psychic, and spiritual levels. A mantra typically has three components to it. There is the Rishi who discovered the mantra. Again, the Rishi is not the person who writes the mantra, he's the one who discovers it. There's the Chandas, which is the poetic meter in which it is composed, the structure in which it is present, and the Devata, the deity to whom it is directed. These are the three main components of a mantra. There are also three further components which I have not covered in this video. They are Bija, Shakti, and Kilaka. Those who are interested can look them up. Mantra Yoga sadhana involves chanting mantras in a proper manner. Now, this is something which has been emphasized on. The pronunciation has to be perfect. The swaras or the intonations of chanting also have to be perfect. So, a lot of importance is given to chanting the mantras properly, because it is believed that any mistakes in the chanting can possibly result in an adverse effect. So a lot of emphasis is placed on getting the pronunciation and the intonation correct. Repeating the mantras is also done as per the instructions of the guru. Now, there are times when mantra yoga sadhana is done using Rudraksha mala or Spatika mala, where a person repeats a mantra for typically 108 times or 56 times. So that is also done. Mantra chanting can be done in three ways, and they are Vaikari, which is loud chanting, Upamshu, which is chanting that can be heard only by the chanter, and Manasika chanting, which is mental chanting. Now, obviously, Manasika chanting is a more subtle kind of chanting, which is practiced by advanced people, advanced practice sadhakas. Vaikari and Upanshu are the gross stages. So, these are the three ways in which mantra sadhana can be done. So, with this, we come to the end of this part, which deals with the different streams of yoga. Thank you.